Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg. Well, my guest today is Cori Myka with Orca Swim School. So, why do I have a swimming teacher with me today? Because I found out through a very serendipitous way, I found Cori, and she is the founder of Calm Within Adult Swim and also the Foundations of Change Learning Method. We'll get into what that is in a second. But I specifically was so thrilled to have Cori come on today because she teaches adult non-swimmers how to get over their fears and get into the pool. So let's just jump right in. Hi, Cori. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Patricia. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I you have a million questions because this is amazing. Because you can start anything new at any age, I'm convinced. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what led to you doing this as your life's work, like specifically working with adults, teaching them to swim.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of as my life's work. My first experience, and I don't even really remember it, but it's my childhood lore of being 5 years old on a houseboat with my family, and apparently my aunt, I might have been younger than that, but my aunt didn't want to get into the water. We were in beautiful Lake Powell, and she didn't want to get in the water, and I'm like, "It's okay, Aunt Mavis. I'll teach you how to swim." Who knew that
Right.
like how prophetic that line was going to be, that really was going to become my life work. And specifically with somebody just like her who is out there with her family doing this beautiful thing, but just feels like they can't participate. And that's where my real true passion is for people to be able to participate in their lives, right? And not have that fear set them back. And so, yeah, I've been teaching swimming forever, almost since I was 5 years old. But yeah, really morphed into like many swim teachers. I mean, you mentioned lifeguards before. I was a lifeguard, was worked at municipalities, that kind of thing. But it was really when I started diving in, working with adults and helping them overcome their fear, that I thought, here's my true passion, because it's an amazing thing to be able to have a transformation. Like you said, we can learn new things at any time in our life, and so it's really fun.
I want to ask the difference. I brought my daughter she's 22 now and is not, thank God, is not afraid of the water. So we did from infancy on. How
Mhm.
does teaching adults differ from teaching children? What is the approach? Because there's a baby just jumps in. You see it that's the fears, right? Like little kids go right up to the pool and adults stand at the edge terrified. So how do we work with adults on that?
Yeah. Oh, and that's exactly the thing, that the brain is developed differently in children versus adults. If children spent all their time worrying about all the problems there are in the world, we never would take our first steps, right? No, no, please just keep changing my diaper for me.
Yes.
And like, I'll just like, you're taking care of everything.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't behoove a child to have those really thinking lots about the future. And that's how the brain is developed. And so an adult, obviously we have different brain development that does tell us it's our job to think about the future and to remember things from the past. And so when we work with an adult, we have to use those tools to our advantage. And we have to acknowledge those things that are there. We can't just say, just do it, which is oftentimes the problem with most swimming instruction, because they're using a child's model, which is just get in and start doing stuff, and eventually you'll like it. But because adults have this other part to look at the future and think about the past, even if they can do the skill, and this is how previous to how I teach now, I would get somebody to swim across the pool and they could do the things, move their arms and legs, and you'd say, how was it? And they're like, I have no idea. I'm like, okay. This is where, yeah, we have to really use that future and past and acknowledge it,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then see what is good about it and what's not useful for us.
What the thing is how do you address the fear? This is a two-part question. Obviously, is the fear of going in because we know as adults you can drown and you can get flustered underwater. Or part two is what if someone has experienced a swimming trauma?
Yeah, so the first part is one of the things, there's several things, but one of the main things that we do is we look and see, well, why are we afraid? And it comes down to something very, very basic, which is the basic concern is I'm going to go under the water where I know I can't breathe and I'll die. I mean, that's really what drowning is lack of access to the air. So we start really, and so what happens in that like future pacing is we're afraid in the future I'm not going to get air. So we miss the fact that right now I do have air, but I'm the one who's in charge of that. And to really make the learning staying connected to when I do have air and I don't have air, and when I have in charge of that, and oh, if I do this, if I jump in the deep end, I might not be in charge of when I get air again. So that's not a good idea to do that right now. And so we have to break it into these steps for that. So
now,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember when we were kids, it's like if you go to camp or you go to swim lessons, they would put you in the water and smack water in your face and dunk you under. I mean, it was the like in retrospect, it's so abusive, in the way that was taught. But something about that made the kids resilient, that nowadays, like we would never do that. But there was those kids that slipped through the cracks and it traumatized them and never made it. So what's the first step in making the adult feel safe getting in the water?
Yeah. So it is really this, if somebody comes with that kind of past trauma, and what we really see is sometimes the past trauma is directly connected to a water incident, but it also can be past traumas that are not connected to water incidents. It can be things that a time where we were out of control, because the water literally and figuratively represents an out of controlness, right? Buoyancy. If you don't know about it, it feels very out of control to you. So it's this out of control environment. So anytime somebody's had a sense of that, or a sense of, like you said, somebody who's just doing something to your body that you didn't ask for, right? So that could come in other ways too. So back to your question, how we help people with it then is to see when that happened and kind of acknowledge that, and to really help them see where they get to have power and control. They're not a child anymore. They might be reacting to something from another time, but to help them come in to the present time and build up their own autonomy within themselves and build that trust within themselves now.
I also want to ask you, we didn't in the pre-interview, we didn't talk about this too much, but can we talk a little bit about the difference between pool and ocean swimming? Because I know when you're in the pool and someone's afraid, you can stand up and hold on to the end of the pool. You can even walk across the length of the pool in a fairly shallow pool with lanes, holding on. Or there's a ladder, or there's the steps, which is completely different than being in the ocean. So, do you do both, either or? How do we get there?
Yeah, we do both.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one of our most favorite things, we're in the middle of a launch right now, is taking people to Hawaii.
Wow.
Right? Go from the pool to the ocean. So that is a lot of fun. So I really think in terms of systems, and that we use this idea of the container of safety. You're always setting yourself up in a container of safety. So as you described in a pool, it seems a little more obvious, like it has very literally concrete edges. The truth is, I mean, if you look at lifeguarding instruction, there is instruction for lifeguards how to do shallow water rescues. I don't know if you, and
No.
the reason, yeah, that's a thing is because people do drown in shallow water. Just because there's a bottom to stand on, that it's not going to make you stand up when you need to breathe. You still have to have enough self-control to put your feet on the floor and take your face out of the water. And if you're in total panic, you don't have that self-control. So when we learn that self-control in the pool, then we can translate it to open water. But it's not that we translate it to all of the open water. We make a container of safety in the open water. So when we go to Hawaii, we go to bays, where it's less wavy. So we can do things like, okay, let me see what it's like to put my face in the water when it's salty, when there are other things floating around, when I'm in 8 inches of water where I can put my hands and feet down. So we start like that because there's many layers of information, and we want to you always make it as simple as possible, and then you just add more and more curiosity. Go forward with curiosity.
So the idea of throwing someone in and setting up that panic, is what everybody fears. And you mentioned mindfulness plays a huge role in overcoming the fears and learning something new. So I hadn't planned on asking you this, but I will. So now you're in the water, you're in the ocean, and you start to feel that panic. What are some techniques to get you out of that panic, to get you where you could stand up and that never occurred to me, that you're in such a state of sheer panic you can't put your feet down and stand up.
Yeah, I mean, your body might figure it out on its own,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd be in panic through the whole thing. But the key thing here, and this kind of is this mindfulness, is the noticing the panic is the first step, is to actually allow yourself to feel into your body. Because what panic does is it's a way of leaving our body,
Mm-hmm.
and leaving control of our body, right? So if we want to have control of our body, we have to actually feel what's in it. It doesn't mean it feels great, but when we start to feel our actual body, the feelings as emotions, and also we tell people the feeling as sensation, right? Panic has for people listening, they can't see me scrunching all my muscles, but if you're watching it on YouTube, you can't, right? We have a bodily reaction to panic. And so when we start to actually feel those sensations as emotions and physiology, it starts the process of bringing us back down, where we can start to be in control again. And then we can start to notice something like, okay, I'm underwater, and in the future, I'm going to run out of air, but I actually do have air right now. If I have consciousness, I actually do have air in the moment, and that creates just a tiny little space of, okay, I have a little bit more time, right? It's not all over yet.
Yeah, these are the nuances of it, and the little tiny tips. So you're in the pool, you're in the ocean, and you start to panic. Maybe you floated out a little too far. Physically, does that dog paddle make it worse? Is it better to just stop all the movement, and will you float to the top? While you're in the middle of it happening, because that is the first response, right? You start to panic and flail.
Yep. Start to panic and flail. So yeah, it is this moment of slowing down, just at a very meta, like, okay, I just have to come in just a little bit. And I tell people, I mean, to the answer to if I stop doing everything while I float up, some people will. Olympic swimmers won't. They don't float. Most adults, we're not as like fit as those Olympic swimmers. We have a little more floaty material on us. So, many adults, most adults float, but there are, I don't know, maybe 10% who don't. But it's that slowing down for an instance. And I say, if you want to put your focus anywhere, you put your focus in your hands, because it's your hands that is what's going to move you. And use that focus on the hands and set your head in the direction that you want to go. So if the scenario where you say you've moved out a little bit, where people make the error, frankly, almost all of my rescues are with people who are about a foot or two away from a wall, away from a wall or away from a dock or away from where it's sloped off. Because the mistake people make is they visually are looking at where they want to go. So they're outside of themselves, but they have to come in to feel, in the case of swimming, our powerhouse is our hands, to feel into their hands and set their head in the direction they want to go. That's going to take you crashing into the wall. Yeah, you have to come back into the body.
Corey, do you use props like with little kids? You use floaties. We call them life preservers, but they're actually a tube or something to hold on to. Tethers, ropes, things like that. Do those work on adults? Do you use that or avoid that or?
So when we're working with a group of people or one-on-one, generally we're not using props like
Mhm.
that. And because our real goal is to help them understand how their body and the water works together. That's not to say that I don't think that a certain amount of flotation devices really are useful. They are useful tools. I'm an open water swimmer. I swim, I carry, we call it lovingly my cheese puff. It's a little flotation device that I tow along behind me. And, for various reasons, it makes me so people can see me, boats can see me. But I also, yeah, if I want to hang on to it, I could hang on to it. Or again, when we take people to Hawaii, wear a life jacket, right? Air always has to be easy. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. And you get to learn other things while you have that safety of, yeah, I know that when I'm in the middle of the ocean, I can still get air.
Does that does that uh is there a drag on it or does it weigh you down or how does it affect your swimming if you have a flotation
My
device?
cheese, yeah, yeah.
Like
It
cheese
doesn't
puff.
it doesn't drag me down. It's like a pillow.
Okay.
It's just a little air pillow that
Okay.
goes along behind me.
Okay.
And it's just tied to my waist and
Okay.
has a little
Mhm.
string that goes back there. People do, it takes a little like if I roll around or something. I mean, it takes like anything you want to I started off in an area again that was super easy. I knew I was 100% safe to adjust and to learn how to use this tool. I know how to use this tool. Now I go out into other places with it. So same thing we do with our students.
Do you do any snorkeling or deep diving? Any of those type of yeah, do you teach that as well?
We teach snorkeling.
Okay.
And that's why we go to Hawaii, because to go out and hang out with the turtles.
Mhm.
We don't ourselves do scuba diving and deep diving such. We would team up with somebody else to do. That's another area of expertise. Although I would love to, because we train instructors. And so when we have an instructor who also has that skill set, like we have a teacher who teaches stand-up paddleboarding, her coming in and learning our method of teaching adults has transformed what she does with the stand-up paddleboarders. Like, oh, they're freaking out on the board. Now I know how to help them calm down on the board so they have a really good time out there and they're safer.
I think I say this about everything in life. There's just too much of a bombardment in the media about what could go wrong, right? And unfortunately, we focus on that rather than what can go right and enjoy it. And one of the things I say, because we talk about, you know, what we deal with when we're aging, is that all this self-consciousness and insecurities we have just about being at the beach or being at the pool. And I always say, what's a beach body? A beach body is you put your suit on and you go to the beach, and that's your beach body, right? And stay away from all that and just really enjoy how the sand and the sun and the water feel and how
Mhm.
therapeutic and healthy for. I mean, I just love, we're in LA, so we swim year round, and I'll admit it, I'm a wimp. We put the heater on in the pool even when it's not so cold out. But just that being in the water, the how it actually relaxes the body when you lean in, and how natural it is to be in water, and how
Mhm.
wonderful it is, uh, and how much we can benefit from it, both physiologically and also psychologically. I can't
Yeah.
say enough about it. And just again, dipping your toes in is fantastic. Never mind all the other stuff. Now, the process of taking someone from being terrified to get in, tell us about how that transformation happens. Do you have people that then go ahead and sign up for triathlons or
Yeah. If I can, I wanted to go back to something you just said there
Sure,
about the beach
absolutely.
body.
Yes, yeah.
I just love that so much. One of the things we tell our people is they say, what does it mean to be a swimmer? It means that you are a person who gets in the water.
Mhm.
Like Those are swimmers. If you're out and dry, you're not swimming. Does it mean you're doing a triathlon? No, but we don't call just triathletes swimmers.
Right, of course.
There's
Yeah,
this
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
beautiful, wonderful spectrum. How do you get to be a triathlete? You get to be a triathlete by getting in and swimming, by just being, like you say, what's a beach body? Just a person, a human being that's at the beach enjoying themselves. I so love that image. My favorite thing I say to students is we are understanding how your perfect, amazing body as it is right now and the water interact together. There's nothing, we don't have to change anything about your body. Like, it's exactly right like it is. It's just the interaction of the two. So I just wanted to share the love
Yeah,
on
yeah.
really loving up our bodies and who we are, right? It's so great. So but yes, people do. I would say not a ton of people go on to do triathlons, because when they get in and they realize, like you say, how amazing it is to just be in the water,
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, oh, maybe I still want to do that triathlon thing, or maybe I just want to feel good,
Mhm.
feel good in my body and in this space.
I
That's
will share with you that I do for my activity now. I'm a former runner and I switched from running to walking. I actually ran 20 marathons and 110 half
wow.
marathons. And I do a lot of weight training and I on and off do competitive stair climbing. I will do a weight train and get in the pool to relax after the weight train.
Mhm.
So I'm not necessarily swimming for the fitness in the competitive sense. I'm just getting in the pool to relax. I'll do a little breaststroke. I'll float around. And I cannot tell you how therapeutic to me. It's like taking a bath. It's just so relaxing. I
Mhm.
never get in the pool alone. I always will not go in the pool unless somebody's in the house or knows I'm in the pool. So, I'm sure you rest assured you tell all the students you're safe as long as somebody else is there with you, and watching out for you. I
Yeah.
want to ask you, you have an online program. How does that work?
Yeah. So we how that works is we outline these steps as we've kind of talked about. You're like, the old school way is just like to throw somebody in the water and they just like sort of figure it out. And as we were talking, like, there's all these little steps, and usually people take too big of steps. And so having the information for them to understand first the psychological part, we
Mhm.
can do that. We really do start that preparation out of the water. And then to be able to give people the steps, these small enough steps, we give people small enough steps that they can go to a public pool, where there's a lifeguard, and they can do these steps, because innately we have the ability to learn these things. I mean, we're not yeah, people aren't, they think it's all about, I got to do all these big weird things. Now but when we give people small enough steps, it's like, oh yes, I could do that. Yeah, so there's a self-study course in there. We support people on Zoom, right? Go out and do your thing. And then, I was just talking with a student yesterday, and we were talking about some of the problem solving, some of the things she's working on. And we've been around the block enough that you can hear it in where the thing is, and help them slow down in that area. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. So, I wanted to just also talk about some more information about you and the Orca Swimming School. You can reach out to Cori at orcaswimschool.com and tell us about some of the programs you have that people can learn about in their area. I know you're in the Seattle area, but throughout the country.
Yeah, so we actually have two sites. So the orcaswimschool.com, that is our Seattle program.
Okay.
So that's where we do our local classes there. But the other place people listening nationally might go to is the adultswimlesson.com.
Okay.
And that site is our real national program. That's where we host our retreats. So we do retreat courses. This is also where we do instructor certification. So we license people to use our material so they can start a local program, because there's a both and. The online education is amazing and great. I mean, we've had people across the world who've used it, and I'm like, wow, you guys are getting the same results that we get when we work in person. But we also understand, people want to work with somebody else, but we can't be everywhere. So we're training those teachers to,
I think that's great.
yeah.
And can they get to Orca Swim School? They can get to the adult swim school as well? Are the websites cross-referenced?
That is a good question,
Yeah.
which, you know what? It probably is not. But,
Okay.
but if they
Well,
emailed us, we would
yeah, well,
all,
and we'll put that up on the
yeah.
put the show up. I wanted to just say collectively, I always say with all my guests, we're here to help each other and help others. So if you are afraid or struggling, go to your Y, go to your local gym, take a swimming lesson. Just get started somewhere where you can get supervised. Don't just jump in the ocean and hope a lifeguard's going to come and get you. Really take the time to find a school or somewhere nearby that you can learn how to swim. I think it's critical. Cori, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been absolutely amazing. And also, can you tell us what you like about getting older?
What do I like about getting older? Um, what I like about getting older, I just had a big birthday, and a big birthday is always how you define it, right? I like having the wisdom of all of these first 50 years. And I'm at the place where I'm just about empty nesting, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I have this vast horizon that I'm going into with all this wisdom and fun. And I think it's a magical space and time. I'm really excited about this time in my life. So I'm enjoying that for
It's
sure.
so wonderful to hear people say they're looking forward to the second half, so to speak, or sometimes we call it the third act. You've been so, your professional, your children, your life, and then, it's kind of like our time and what we want to do.
It
So
is.
it is. Cori, thank you so, so much for joining us. And for more information about Cori Myka and Orca Swim School, you can follow up at orcaswimschool.com and also adultswimschool.com. Thank you all so much for listening. Please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and you can also follow along on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you all so much for being here.